Good morning and welcome to the crazy Swansea Guildhall car parking kiosk. It's been absolutely crazy outside in the car park, and there's an event on at the moment. Is it the British Car Parking Association? It's absolutely crazy. But anyway, welcome. I'll wait to the end to do my thank yous because a lot of you has put a lot of work into this, and that's councillors and the staff as well. So I'll start with Grev's apologies, Victoria Holland and Sam Bennett. No more. Any disclosures of personal and prejudicial issues? Provision of whip votes. Public questions. No. 5 anti-social behaviour scrutiny inquiry, final report to Cabinet, and I'll hand over to Michelle. Okay, Michelle.
Great, thank you. So we're at the stage now to discuss the very final draft of the report. Councillors met and looked at it informally, and we now have a draft set of recommendations. So today we're looking to speak to all the people that contributed or who came back to us after we sent it round to them, who may have something they'd like to contribute. So if I've got a list here, you would have seen the briefing notes. So I thought the best thing to do would be just to go through that list, get everybody's comments. Everyone apart from the panel can then leave, and you can then discuss whether you or how you would like to amend the report to have a final draft. Anyway, okay. So the first, I thought we could start with the external people first. I was just looking at the list of who we have here. I don't think anyone's online yet. Let me just view everybody to see see if we've got everybody. We're looking for. Oh, yes. Yeah, we have. Yep. From the external people, we start with Serena Jones. She's sent in a written feedback, which you will have seen, but she's also here to discuss that. Serena, are you there? Hello, Serena.
I am here. Can you hear me, see me?
Yes, we can. Great. If I hand over to you, if you'd like to give your feedback. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Am I right that you circulated the notes that I sent through?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, great. So the only thing then I really wanted to stress is whether or not we could, in terms of that kind of community mediator recommendation, about whether or not there is something that we could at least come together as housing providers in terms of the council and the 3 housing associations, about whether or not we could look to be piloting some activity in that space and able to train up citizens so that they can engage in restorative mediation locally within their communities. I'm not suggesting that we consider anything big, but just something to start trying to trial that method as a way of tackling those low-level issues, which if they don't get tackled early can become quite big issues for communities ultimately. So that's really the only area that I wanted to kind of raise here if I can. And yeah, happy to discuss any other points as required. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you very much. I've got that noted. Thank you. We now have on our list.
Ready.
Yep, we have Derwin Thomas from South Wales Police, if you'd like to come in, Mr. Thomas.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Sergeant Derwin Thomas. I work in the ASB team in Swansea Central, covering Swansea, Neath and Patrol, but I'm here on behalf of Chief Inspector James Ratty, who unfortunately can't attend here this morning. From our perspective, there's nothing to further add to other than what we've already recommended, and that's what I've been asked to pass on to you today.
That's great. Thank you very much. We also have two people who are going to attend from YMCA. I can't see them online, but I'll ask them if they're here. Kelly Powell and Matt McLaughlin. Are they here? Not to worry, we'll come back to that at the end and see if they're here then. Okay, so I was looking to next go to the views of cabinet members. So if we go through,
Louise first.
yeah, if we could do Louise Gibbard first. Okay.
Could you go to Alison or Hayley first, please? Because I think it's more in their portfolio areas, and then I can chip in if there's anything extra. I'm sort of here as a supporting actor. Thank you.
Lovely. Okay, so we go to Alison, please.
Thanks everyone. I'm struggling for a minute because my computer, I've changed over my name today and everything is trying to reboot, so I'm working blind for a minute or two. So I wouldn't mind if we could, whilst I try and see the paperwork in front of me, I think we have got a few things that we'd like to query and question a little bit. Do you know what I mean? So if we can go to the office as chair and come back while this reboots, I'd be very grateful. If we can go to the Gareth is on, Jane is here, and then if you can just come back to me to give me a couple of minutes while everything boots up, please, I'd be grateful.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah,
So if we
okay.
go to the groups of officers, if that's all right, should we go to the social services group, which is Kelly Richards, Jane Whitmore and Gareth Pritchard.
Chair, do you want me to start just as an overview? So in terms of the recommendations, I'd like to thank the panel. Actually, it's been a really helpful process to actually see everything and understand what's going on. So a lot of the recommendations will relate to the Safer Swansea partnership that does sit in our portfolio as well, that we'll pick up along with Gareth and Paul and wider partners to see what we can do around the Safer Swansea partnership recommendations. I think there's a lot of recommendations that are heavily relating to funding. And I just think just as from officer advice, just a caveat that obviously those recommendations will be pending any further funding coming from different funding sources, which could be the Home Office or Welsh Government, because obviously we are looking at the budgets. So there's a lot of them, I think, that will have to be pending budgets becoming available to where we can do that. Saying that, we do have a lot of good news stories where we have been successful and can take some of these forward. You know, which I'm not going to spoil Kelly's bit of terms around CMIT, and until we've been very successful in terms of a funding stream there. I'll leave Kelly talk about that. But also as well is just to sort of note, so there's the one thing there. The other thing is around the availability of staffing. So a lot of we get, even though we sometimes have money, but we're also then we struggle to recruit, and we struggle to recruit the right type of people to do the right type of jobs as well. So there's also, although there are recommendations in terms of like youth workers, I know that they sit in Kelly's portfolio. She would tell you it is really, really difficult to recruit youth workers, not just from a council perspective, but also working with our third sector partners. I know we mentioned the YMCA, we work really closely with them, but we're all struggling with the same thing. So in terms of a lot of the recommendations, that it is pending what we can and what we are available, what we have funds available to do. But if I pause and bring Kelly and then Gareth in, is that okay? Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Jane. From a child and family perspective, we were really pleased to see the inclusion of young people in the inquiry. Their voices are loud and heard all the way through, and that is really positive. Around the recommendations in relation to qualified youth workers, I would just echo what Jane has said, that it is difficult to recruit qualified youth workers. We have recruited some additional staff into Evolve, and we are looking to train those up in-house. So what we're finding is we're not recruiting them already qualified, but what we are doing is supporting them to gain qualifications. I think it was acknowledged in the report that we haven't got enough youth workers, because, you know, the ideal would be for youth workers to be in every community. We are not up to that level at this point. And as Jane said, budget constraints will impact on that. But if that is our aspiration and vision for the future, that is one that is welcomed by Child and Family Services, because we totally appreciate that, you know, the more resource, the better support that young people get. The other recommendation that we were really pleased to see was around the promotion of young people having more access to our community buildings, because even though you know, we haven't got enough youth workers, we do have youth workers in areas where we don't have a building of our own, and that recommendation around promoting the use of community centres where we don't have our own resource will be really helpful in us spreading the resource that we have got wider across the city. So we were really pleased to see that. Going forward, as Jane has alluded to, our CMET team, the Contextual Missing, Exploited and Trafficked team, made a bid to the Youth Endowment Fund for some additional resource, and we have, I am pleased to say, been successful in that, and we're currently in the planning stage. So we've had some money come in for us to pilot a new approach in 2 areas of Swansea. We've identified those 2 areas using the data from the CMET panel around where we get referrals of extrafamilial harm, but also, you know, elements of antisocial behaviour. Because I thought what the report did really well was acknowledge that what people see from the outside as antisocial behaviour can very often either just be, you know, groups of young people harmlessly gathering with their friends, and then on the other end of the spectrum, it can be groups of young people who are actually being exploited by adults in areas of concern. So what's really positive is that one of those pilot areas is Swansea East, which includes the city centre, because we know that, you know, young people from all over Swansea congregate in the city centre, and that is, you know, causing some issues there, and the Penderry ward. So they are the 2 wards where we will be piloting this new approach. We will have additional staff, and we'll be doing some really intensive work with South Wales Police, with education, and with our partners in the community safety team to try and really target and hone in on the issues in those areas and take a whole family approach to trying to tackle extrafamilial harm and youth violence in those 2 areas of Swansea. So the funding is initially for 18 months. The first 6 months is implementation. Then we'll have 12 months to try and prove that this approach works. And if it does, that could open up some additional funding whereby we can roll out this approach to more areas of Swansea. So watch this space. That's really positive, and we're really hopeful that we're going to be successful in the pilot stage and we'll be able to implement wider, which will, by its very nature, have a positive impact on young people and their role in our communities. Thank you.
And could I just say to that one of my favourite venues when we went outside to tackle some of the antisocial behaviour was the hub we went to in Bryn Hyfryd, where all those young people turned out. We gained so much information from that particular event, and I think maybe we should drop a line to them saying thank you for that, because they really did give us some good information. So again, it's working with the young people as well. Thank you.
Actually, we've actually contacted them with the report, not the young people, but the workers, the youth workers, and they were hoping to, once your report is finalised and it's gone to cabinet, to actually get the young people together again and feedback the recommendations, especially the ones that are most appropriate to them. Okay, so if we,
Sorry, Gareth, do you want to come in from an officer perspective in terms of the recommendations as well? Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just not much more to add than what Jane's already stated. Obviously, with funding and how that's going to underpin, you know, some of these recommendations. But yeah, I'm pleased with a lot of the recommendations, especially in and around the ASB case review. And just to highlight with regards to the embedding the 5 key ASB Home Office principles, as we highlighted in a couple of the panel meetings, that they're not going to come into force until March, April next year anyway. So it allows us that bit more time then to look at advertising that, and that will come in line with one of the other recommendations with regards to how we promote and provide information through our various different social media platforms, and obviously the council website. So I'm looking at working with the IT department with regards to what that looked like and how we can take that forward. Other than that, yeah, you know, fully supportive of the recommendations and what Jane's already said.
Thank you for that.
Can I come in now, Chair? Sorry.
Yes, come in, Alison.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for bearing with me. I'm up and running. Nothing's ever as simple as they say it's going to be with computers. So look, I would like to thank everybody for all the work that's gone into this. There's been a lot of meetings, there's been a lot of time and effort put in, and I am very grateful. And we're grateful for the recommendations, and I think the overall acknowledgement of the excellent partnership work that does take place, you know, within, and the officers have touched on, you know, it is, staffing is difficult, and, you know, I as a personally absolutely admire the youth workers qualification, and I've been preaching for years that it's not recognised enough and not valued enough. You know, and maybe the schools and colleges got to look at that for people to realise that there is a career there, you know, because it is very, very different to work with young people and to work with adults or to work with small children. It is, you know, so and I think that the whole stigma around young people and ASB is something from this, Chair, that this will help, because we have to break these barriers down, and we have to, you know, even when we're in budget meetings this week, you know, I was saying you cannot look at things in isolation. You know, it's no good if one part of the council says, or councillors say, we don't want to put lights in this area because we don't want young people hanging around, and then they moaning then when the young people are hanging around where there is a light by a bus station. Do you know what I mean? And we have to start breaking these barriers down of just because they're hanging around. We all hang around. It doesn't mean that they're up to up to mischief, or that they should all be tarred at the same brush. And so we welcome the recommendations, and you know, I'm pleased about the mapping exercise. You know we've got massive problems with community centres and not wanting young people in there. This has to be a cross-party. It has to be across the council where we re-look at things, because the working in silos is what's causing a lot of the problems, you know, and we have to listen to young people, and you've done that. You've gone out, you went to Bryn Hyfryd, you've met with different people, and we have to respect that and really start listening, you know, and, you know, the community cohesion team, along with Gareth, you know, are desperately been trying for years to break down the myths and the stigma in the school. And so education need to be on board more to get the schools to allow these projects to take place. You're not knee-jerk, not responding to an incident, rather than doing the training from a young age. And you know, I know the leader has been on the case with the Police and Crime Commissioner, you know, that one-year projects are very, very difficult. We need 3-year investment, and your report brings all that. So, you know, as you've seen, it's a very, very small team. Gareth hugely relies on partnership working for everything. There's the funding is an absolute massive issue, you know. So hopefully this report, Chair, will give us that sort of base now to be able to take forward, get Cabinet to agree it, and then we've got something that underpins the way we want to go forward. So again, thank you everybody. I'm very grateful.
And thank you, Alison.
If I can bring in Matt McLaughlin, please, from the YMCA.
Hi, yeah, I was just picking up on what Alison said about youth work training. The YMCA is actually partnershipped up with Gower College Swansea, and we are providing level 2 qualifications in youth work, along with level 3 qualifications in youth work, with the progression pathways to go on to university and do your level 4, 5, 6 masters, and so on and so forth. So if you have anyone in mind for youth work or interested in youth work, then please send an email to our manager Carly, who is running that training.
Okay, cool.
Thank you. Did you we've been going around to the different external partners. Did you have anything else you wanted to say about the report from your perspective from the YMCA?
I feel that we'd be very similar to the Evolve. We work quite closely with them and CMA as well, and we try and do as much outreach and partnership work with them as we can. And we can see all the good work that they're doing and how well CMA is going. I think it is improving. I mean, the numbers for our youth club has increased since the outreach has been more coordinated. We've gone from having about 15 young people to a consistent 30. So it is getting better. I think we're on the right tracks. So yeah, I'm only looking forward to where we go from here,
Great, thank you very much. So shall we, do we want to move on to some other cabinet members? Hayley Gwilym?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I don't want to repeat what everybody else has kind of said already, but I know that there's lots of excellent work that's going on in our communities, and maybe we don't share that enough. We don't promote the good work that's being done, and I know in some instances it's quite difficult because we're working with a lot of vulnerable people, so you can't share information, but there must be a way, I think, of highlighting the work that's being done and reporting mechanisms and all that, so that residents are well informed. I too have the same reservations around staffing implications, budget pressures. I'm adding workload to small teams that are really stretched to the brink. I know there's a lot of really excellent partnership working, and I know part of the report mentioned about having other organisations to join that Safer Swansea partnership. We know that we can't do things in isolation, and that by working in partnership we can get more done and reach more people. So I really support the recommendations. I just wanted to say as well, thanks to everyone involved. I know that there's been a huge amount of work that's been undertaken, not just by councillors who've attended these sessions and really asked a lot of excellent questions to gather that information that's informed this report, but the residents as well, a lot of partner agencies. We couldn't have done this alone, and there's so much important key information that are fed into these recommendations, and I wholly support that. And I want to thank the teams as well. I know Kelly just mentioned, about the grant applications. There's a lot of work that goes on in applying for grants to be able to undertake the work that they're doing in our communities. And it's really pleasing to hear that youth endowment application was successful, and the creative ways and lengths that our staff go to source those funding opportunities. And I know that I just want to plug that our Evolve service have been nominated for an award actually for the outreach work that they are doing, and I think that's a really positive thing for our community. So thank you everyone.
Thank you. So I bring in Louise Gibbard.
Yeah, I think offering to go last means everything has already been said to a great extent. So I won't take up too much of your time. Just yeah, absolutely what Councillor Anthony and Gwilym said. This is it's a really interesting report, and really grateful for pulling it so wide reaching as well. So I think before we do our formal recommendation, there's things in there that we're going to have to talk to other cabinet colleagues about. Especially particularly some of the sort of place-based services that have been highlighted there. But yeah, it's really good to see recognising the good practice that we we already have in across the service. And I really like the recommendation, particularly about building on the intergenerational work and doing that, because that's, you know, that's something that's really important for building those bridges in our communities and breaking down the barriers between, you know, young people who are not the only cause of antisocial behaviour or even the cause of antisocial behaviour in a lot of communities, but really sort of flagging that side of things and you know, building on that. So that was all I had to say, because Alison and Hayley have said it, and the officers have said it all. So thank you again to the panel and everybody for their hard work.
Thank you. Is Councillor Lewis there, please?
Hi, yes, I am here. And just to support what colleagues have said, and I know we've got Sarah Jordan and also Judith Williams from Housing on the line. I'm sure they'd like to respond to Serena's offer for us to work collaboratively with the housing associations to get on the same page and take the same approach to tackling antisocial behaviour. I know that we've done this for a very long time in housing, and we will be looking very closely at the recommendations and the impact that they will have on how we deliver our approach to tackling antisocial behaviour across our social housing. So thanks to the committee for all the excellent work that they've put in. I know this is a massive piece of work which has been running for around 10 months. And I'd like to invite Sarah or Judith to make any further comments from a housing perspective.
Thank you. Could I bring in the housing and public health group of people? If we want to start, who would like to start?
Shall I start, Michelle?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I think just to reiterate what's already been said quite a lot in, you know, from the councillors and from other people, you know, it is, you know, I think the report has given us the opportunity to reflect on perhaps some of the way that we're currently working. And I think for us, it's been pleasing to say that we are doing an awful lot of good work on the ground. You know, our partnership working is excellent with the, you know, we've got with the PSGs and the work that we do locally with PCSOs. You know, we're very much in communities, we're very visible, we're visible on our estates with officers. You know, we're very much committed to doing engagement events and pop-ups. Some of you will have experienced those within your wards. I think importantly, in respect of those, I think we've tried to pare them back more recently, make them much smaller and more targeted, because I think we've found historically that sometimes having a lot of people stood around can put people off coming to see you. So keeping them small, getting people to come and talk to us, going to knock doors during that process as well, has really, really been helpful. I think that our area housing office structure obviously makes us very accessible to tenants and to residents, and of course, as well as our neighbourhood officers who are out in estates, we've got our neighbourhood support unit and our caretaking teams. All are out there sort of knocking doors, seeing people and dealing quite robustly with ASB as, you know, as much as we can, but also doing a lot of that work around support and mediation. You know, we already have mediation services that we engage. We do a lot of that mediation ourselves at quite a low level as well, you know, before perhaps referring it to a high level when things are perhaps not always so great. But I think that, you know, when we look at the principles of how to deal with antisocial behaviour, I think we're quite pleased to see that we are delivering those. And I guess in terms of the recommendations of the report, I think there are certainly opportunities there in terms of mapping and working together. You know, to reiterate what Andrea says, that yeah, we're certainly committed to working with partners in any shape or form, really. And you know, there are lots of elements that are really helpful. You know, I think, yes, you've talked about youth working, and I don't think we find that it's that type of antisocial behaviour that we deal in day to day. You know, ours does tend to be a little bit more one-on-one. However, that's not to say that we don't want to be engaged and involved in, you know, partners in terms of youth working and, you know, helping our communities to be cohesive. I'm not sure whether Sarah wanted to add anything.
Yeah, I think Jude's covered it pretty comprehensively. I think the only other thing I wanted to pick up, there's reference in the recommendations to data collection and maybe how we can share that. We've invested in upgrading our data collection resource recently, but certainly I think there's opportunities there for sharing maybe some themes and headlines, and to see whether or not we can all learn from one another. And yes, we will make contact with Serena and with the other housing associations to see where we can maybe share that learning and sort of maybe understand the sort of drivers and then try to sort of find ways to address them. So I think we certainly would welcome a conversation around how we could sort of share that information. But other than that, I think Jude pretty much covered it. As Jude said, we're in the communities. We've got our area housing office service. Whilst there isn't enough space in them to sort of offer other services to come and base from there, what I would probably say is there are opportunities for doing some joined up work in those spaces if partners want to talk to us about that. I think that's it really from me, but yeah, welcome the recommendations. Thank you.
Yeah. Could I just mention also, the community coordinators, they're out in the communities on a daily basis. They are doing a very good job in certain areas. I know not everybody got them, but it'd be nice to see that expanded, because they are knocking doors, they are talking to people, whether it's in the house or outside, and they also help in with the safeguarding as well, where they spot things and they pass that on to different departments.
I bring in Tom Price, please.
Thank you very much. Just to, I say, it's been said quite a bit already this morning, not to reiterate a lot of what's been said, certainly by Sarah and Judith there. For us, from the environmental health perspective, we deal with statutory nuisance primarily in this type of area. We are already working with the student liaison officer. We part fund that post as well. Recently, there was an engagement exercise with landlords where we've reiterated the stuff about antisocial behaviour and noise and letting people know what we do, how to get hold of us, and potentially what may happen if we come knocking. We run the out of hours service. Looking at one of the recommendations about community protection notices, warnings, etc. within there. I'm happy to look and assess at a later date at whether or not we would delegate that power. However, a lot of the work we do sits at primary legislation, statutory noise nuisance. So if you look at noise as an example, if it's a statutory nuisance and it's at that threshold which we assess for, community protection notices aren't an option that you can follow. You must go with primary legislation. But that means that there is a different level, different test that's required, a lower threshold test, which we're happy as an outcome and recommendation here that we would look at to work with in wider services and provision that we do. Agree, obviously, with the mapping exercise. I think that will lead into a lot of crossover areas and areas for work, which I know colleagues have already referred to. And hub office approaches, for example. A lot of us are agile now. We do a lot in this format with teams, etc. It's not as much of a day-to-day role ASB-wise as obviously for a lot of players on the call here, but we are available. We attend the PSGs. We are in that sort of data capture area as well. And the last point only for me really was on recommendation 19 about contribution to services. Happy, I think, to look into the potential of it. I don't know what it would look like. I don't know how much money people are looking at. It's been mentioned about staffing resources here. I've got a figure in my head, but I know that that won't match the figure in other people's heads. It's how we deliver stuff. There's a lot of work to be looked into doing that. Noise abatement, we are the professional officers from the council. We have the delegated authority. We can't delegate that authority elsewhere. It's us that do that work. But there's a role for all organisations here. I read within the report about concerns of us pushing comments back. You know, as a landlord, you have a responsibility under your tenancy as well. So that's an element of how we sort of push complaints back to other services, because they can be dealt with at source. But I certainly accept that, yes, there's a lot of effort and a lot of warrant here looking into wider potential service delivery within this package.
As I say, I think it's very interesting on the statutory nuisance side of things, and maybe perhaps that, and I've got to talk out of turn out of my remit, but that sort of information would also be very good for local councillors as well.
Yeah,
there's a lot of different training, I think, but the statutory nuisance and those sort of things, especially with the reporters coming out, I think.
Yeah, happy to put any sort of training together or discussions. You know, as people who might have heard of my name, etc. I'm more than happy to respond to anybody, councillors, etc. Obviously, there is a certain level of what information we can give out in legal themes, but yeah, happy to go through anything if it gives you more information and helps you address stuff. Then happy to be a part of a wider sort of package of information share.
Yeah, just for information, I have used it in the past before I was a councillor, believe me.
Right.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Just to come in on that, actually, there's something we are exploring with the South Wales Police and the Police and Crime Commissioner and us as a council in terms of a one resident event, which kind of then describes us to get us all together as councillors and PCSOs and officers to understand what the police can do and what the council can do and what we can all do together. So there's that's been in the planning stages, but I think that might be really helpful for everybody because sometimes we don't know what powers we can use or who can use them and who can't use them. So it's kind of that clarity. So that is a sort of probably on the back of lots of things that have gone on is something that we are looking at through the Safer Swansea partnership that'll go, but it's in its very early infant stages at the minute. But obviously that would include like all of us are really on this call, but just when we get that one going, but would help with a lot of those questions and queries that come up around what can we do, what we can't do. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So if the chair's happy, if we move on to if councillors have got any questions for those people who've given comments today. So any councillors on the panel would like to ask anyone anything before we go into the session to discuss the final draft of the report. Everyone happy, Terry? Happy?
Yeah, I'm quite happy with that, and I'll take this opportunity to express my thanks. Without the staff and fellow councillors attending these meetings or online, made the job a lot easier for me. But I will insist that I prefer to go outside this building to meet up with different age groups and everything else. We get more information. Yes, as councillors, we take a bit of stick, but once that bit of stick is out the way, frustrations are out the way. What I find is we gain so much information then, leave them have they say, but people say, move on, leave them have they say, and then the information comes to us. And that's from past experience as well. Thank you very much. And that's everybody.
Not so much the question what's been done, because it's it's sound work. I mean, we're fully aware of what an ASB is or how to define it, but it seems to be a lot of emphasis on young people in here. Are we tending to forget that it's not only young people that express an antisocial behaviour, and I'm just wondering, are we going to be thinking in terms of how we can address that issue, particularly in the centre of Swansea, where you've got people who are affected by alcohol abuse and drug abuse. I mean, that needs to be addressed as well, and I wonder where in the document are we going to address that situation, because one of the recommendations is to address this from source, and the source problem there with a lot of these not so young, they're certainly not children. I mean, they are teenagers and older, and they do give a presence where it can be, where people in the centre of the town feel it is threatening when they are about. I know many of them, and in real terms they're harmless, but they give the impression of being an intimidating force. And I feel that something needs to be done to address that situation, which in real terms is a kind of antisocial behaviour. That's the only comment. The work that's been done by the panel, I mean we can't fault that on everybody's efforts in developing the whole programme. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Bring in Jane.
Thank you, Councillor. It's a really valid point, and actually it isn't just about young people. It is about, and when you talk about the city centre, so there are some initiatives that are going on, and these are very much joint with South Wales Police. So there's two funding streams that have been made available from the Home Office, and that is to the councils, but primarily to South Wales Police. So Op Sentinel funding initiatives is a Home Office pilot for 23-24, and in the first instance it's about increasing visibility and patrols, because that's what I guess that's what people feel makes them feel safe, is when you see people actually to go there. And it's in particularly targeted at ASP hotspot areas, and it's based on police data over 5 years. So 2/3 of that funding has gone to the police directly, and then the remainder of that has gone out to some community safety partnerships. So ours is across Neath and Swansea. Obviously, we have 2 different ones, but it's on that footprint. So there is additional funding coming to Swansea Council and partners to actually address some things in the city centre in those areas, in terms of working with young people, working with communities, cohesion kinds of work as well. But it is only for this financial year. But a bit like Kelly described in terms of the Youth Endowment Fund, they are about pilots, and if we can prove an evidence base that this works, that there is opportunity for further funding. So that's the Op Sentinel piece of work that's going on. There's also additional funding that's been made available, and we've been successful in putting a bid in for that as well, for Safer Streets. So that's around the physicality of how people feel safe. So the physical environment, lights, and that's working obviously with our colleagues in place in terms of extra lights. There's a little bit in terms of CCTV. I know that Sarah's on the call, that we've talked about what does actually that look like. So that's only for this financial year, the one of them is, and the other one does go into the second bits of next financial year. So that it's definitely on people's agenda, that's the kind of things you would need to be investing in and doing that. And I guess it's for us as partners to work together to make sure that we really, make the best opportunity of those funding coming available. So I'm pleased to say that it is coming slowly. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, whilst we question the fact that recruitment is it's a difficult area to tackle. I mean, how much use do we make of the rangers and the PCSOs, which are actually in the centre of the town, and I mean, they are very familiar with the kinds of antisocial behaviour that takes place. And I do know that the police, I think, am I right in my understanding that there is a programme of installing CCTV, not only in the city centre, but in the wards around, the city, Uplands being one example that I'm aware of. So I wonder, is that part of the programme?
Alison, please.
Oh,
Alison?
we can't hear. Oh, I was going to say can't hear what the chair is saying, but just to say that we are working through the CCTV, and I'm sure Gareth might comment on it now, when we certainly will be looking at hotspots and things, but it doesn't roll out as quickly as perhaps people will want it to. And that, it's like anything, there's limited funds, but it is all upgraded and nearly sort of ready to go. But can we be careful on the rangers, please? Because the rangers were never employed to be the police. They were never employed to do any sort of policing. I think that they have been forced down that road a little bit, acting like the police or the security guards for the shops, but they are supposed to be there to help residents and tourism and all that side of it as well. So we can't really rely on the rangers for ASB and things like that. So just to sort of clarify that, please, if I can. Thank you.
If I can bring in Gareth.
Yeah, just on the 2 points there, with regards to CCTV, we've invested £1 million now into a brand new infrastructure across the whole of the city and county. It's not just a matter of swapping analog cameras for digital cameras. That's a whole digital infrastructure when we were working off BT fibre before. So it's been quite an extensive rollout. It's involved very many external partners as well, and providers like BT. So we were reliant on timelines with them. You're quite right, the city centre is already virtually all completed now. But there are other areas and other wards that were part of that initial footprint that we designed pre-COVID, because obviously we were going to start running up that project then. So yes, councillor, it is in Uplands. We've also got Gysinnon. There's a couple of cameras in Mumbles as well. And then once that project is complete, should there be any further requests then for additional locations, that would be something that we would look at, provided there's a robust business case and allocated funding attached to that. So to reassure you, it's constantly being looked at. The current project just includes Uplands, Mumbles, Pontarddulais, and the city centre, but any further additions to that will certainly be looked at. Within that project as well, just to cover off, there we've also are utilising mobile cameras for hotspots. There are challenges with doing that with regards to power, the way our street lighting works within the city and county of Swansea. So there's various different things that need to be upgraded to install one of those cameras. The second point that Alison touched on with regards to the Rangers, they are primarily our ambassadors in the city centre. Recently, in the last 2 years, they've been given enforcement powers as well, because just in case you're not aware, we do have a public space protection order in the city centre, which has various conditions on it to deal with the antisocial behaviour that you have described just now, with regards to not necessarily youth, but our street vulnerable, where we signpost, where the Rangers signpost. They do a lot of intervention work with those vulnerable people, and we work very closely and interject with both the police and our street vulnerable Marek team, whereby we signpost through that. But obviously, when there is an enforcement that needs to be done, we do utilise fixed penalty notices and community protection warnings and things like that, the various different tools that we've got in our toolkit to be able to do that. So the Rangers' primary role is ambassador, but because of the PSPO, we've had to give them those enforcement powers to assist and support being able to do that, because it is a local authority power, not a police power. So just to reassure you that that work is ongoing. We're constantly looking at how we can improve that PSPO and how effective it is. But it runs for 3 years. It's going to expire in 2025. But we have an annual review, which we're currently undergoing right now, and we hold operational meetings once a month with regards to the PSPO with our city centre management team to ensure that we keep on top of everything as well.
Yes, thank you for that. Yes, I'm familiar with quite a lot of the Rangers in the city centre. I think they do a damn good job, really. Thank you.
I see him as very visible more than anything. I don't know what the job description are as such, but I see him quite often, and it's a.
Did we have any more comments from anybody, from any of the contributors before we go into a anyone else would like to contribute? Any last words before we go into a session for members to talk about changes? No, that's great. If we could ask for anyone who's not a member of the panel to therefore leave, and we'll now discuss